So this past week, we had an interesting dynamic happen with the company. As in any business, you have ebb and flow. You have great months, you have great quarters, and you have not so good months or not so good quarters, right? Or years, right? But we got hit recently last week with one of our employees letting us know that they're going to step away from their position. So it was interesting because we do quarterly follow ups, we do monthly follow ups, we do all that, right? And something told me to tell my team member to just check in with this one employee, just to check in. And it was interesting because nothing had happened. Um, I just had this inkling to say I don't know, little bird on my shoulder saying, "Hey, tell your team to check in with this employee just to see, test the waters, get a feel of temperature for where they are with everything." And again, nothing had happened for me to have that feeling. I just did. So my team reached out, and good thing they did because the employee had already the day before put in their notice that they would be, giving their 2 weeks and leaving. And they gave it to the company. Now we do contract this particular employee. We do contract to hire and we do direct placement as well, right? So this particular employee was contract to hire through us, right? So it was interesting because to get this employee almost 8, 9 months ago, the team and I had to go through a lot of communication with this employee that they actually opened the doors of communication with us to keep them on the project that they were on because they were happy, they were content, they wanted to stay, they wanted to see if they can explore the growth and all that, which is fine. But not only did they want to stay there, but they also made countless requests in order to, see if we could do a little better on the pay, right? Like that's common sense, right? Everybody wants to do that. And so in negotiations, my team and I, they kept coming back to me and saying, well, can we do this? Can we do that? So we had communication going back and forth, to get this employee into this position 8, 9 months ago. So it was both the employee and us as a company trying to make sure we were keeping our word and doing above and beyond to provide the proper service to what we were being told was what was needed, right? And then if we could do more, we do more, right? Well, we were able to do more. Now, unbeknownst to the employee, never, because that's just not how I operate, but we had to take some cuts in order to get them what they were looking for. Uh, so we were able to, let's just say, increase their pay. I'm not going to be specific, but I'll give a generality. We increased their pay, which was normally, and we were able to put them on salary because they're contract to hire. So we put them on salary, which we didn't have to do. And then we increased their pay for it was about 18% uh, market standard, industry standard. All right. So we put you on salary when you normally contract to hire, which we don't have to do, and then we give you 18%. So because we wanted to show that we value, their skill set and their position, and also too, we knew that we would build a relationship that should sustain any ebb and flows that come about, right? At least because of the communication that happened, I would say probably about 4 or 5 months prior to really locking in the actual deal for them. We had a 4 or 5 month window of communication, and even to the point to where uh, they're out of state from the corporate headquarters. Of my team member flew out to meet with them in person to have a conversation in person because we valued who they were and we valued what we wanted to do for them. And we knew what, if we could work it together, it would be amicable for both parties. Even though we had to take a cut, yes, we still benefited. I'm not denying that. But again, it was still a cut that had to be made, right? And most companies don't do what we did in order to provide for that particular employee. That being said, we got told in this conversation that this employee decided to, like I said, resign. Now, had I not told my team member to call this employee, we would not have known, for one. For two, My team member had just spoken to this employee for their PTO vacation time they took with their family. Because again, we stay in contact. My employee, because we chart this in the CRM. My employee just spoke to this employee 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago to ask, and the conversation is always recorded, right? The tracking of questions is always recorded. How are you doing? Where can we be of service? Or is everything running the way you want it to operate? And everything was across the board, the hundreds. This employee told us as an organization that they were doing just fine. There was no issues. So how do we go from there are no issues 2 weeks ago to 2 weeks later, had we not contacted you, that you had just put in your resignation less than literally, I guess, 24 hours before we called you to your company and didn't advise us. We're the ones who are cutting your check, who got you the 18% increase on yours and salaried you. So my question in today's conversation, what I want to talk to you guys is integrity. If the demand as us as a company and the LLC or the Inc. or whatever, whoever the entity is that is the company, shareholders, investors, or whatever may be a part of it, C-suite, you got CEOs, you got managers, you got HR, you got departments. If our job as a company, you expect us to have integrity in how we deal with you, where is it that the integrity side is still not demanded of the employee or the worker, if you will, right? And I'm not coming down this, but what I'm saying is I want to start a conversation. That's what this whole platform is about here at Higher Power Tech. We have to have integrity when it comes to how we operate in humanity with each other, especially when integrity was given to another party prior to, without warrant or without anything pushing, the level of character and communication from the company side. We deliver at a high level so you can provide for your family. You would think that the reverse, the reciprocation would be the same, right? And it's not. And because I'm speaking from the business owner aspect, of course, but I know so many times, we'll have picketing, we'll have, in the WNBA, which again, rightfully so, as the players out there in the court who are getting paid a fraction of the price that the NBA players are getting paid. You pay us what we're worth, right? If not, we walk. All that strikes happen, right? I get it from that standpoint, but I also think that people don't get it from the other standpoint. The employers, the people who are cutting the checks, it's not always a situation where it's about the bottom line and just profit and not about the loss, or just getting money, money, money. Things are done a lot of times in order to put employees in a quality position. The hope is that as you are in your position, if it's not meeting the standards that you decide, please have the integrity to communicate, especially when an organization has been profusely, ad nauseum about their level of communication and then delivering on their said contractual word and even going above and beyond that. Again, I don't know where you go as a contractor and get locked in to a hiring recruiting firm, headhunting firm as a salaried employee. On top of that, you get 18% market standard. And honestly, you didn't do necessarily anything to warrant that, because we do our reconnaissance work with the company, the client at hand, who you're underneath, to see, okay, what has their track record been for the past year, 2 years, however long they've been there, 6 months, however long they've been there. It was just doing the work necessary to be done, not anything that would warrant, yes, we will want to move you into this position, right? Or you should get paid more. So we're providing that for you. Now, this is not, you can say, well, you didn't have to do that. You're absolutely correct. We did not. And we take the respect and the onus, again, integrity on. We have to make sure that we are okay with losing, in a sense, when we're investing in it. And I'm okay with it because I understand I have plenty of investments, plenty of things going on. I know what it's like to try to invest in, you get told the projections of what it should be, right? But then the reality of what may happen, and then things that just may, fall out, wars happening, tariffs happening, that, things change. I get that. Fully understand. What I'm coming from, the dynamic of this particular conversation is so we can have a conversation, open up dialogue. So, because we get so often in browbeat with the negative from the companies to Amazon not doing what, right by its employees, whoever, any other company you can think of, Walmart employees, not whoever feels like they're being undercut because they're looking at, the especially publicly traded companies, in market companies, when you see, what they're brought in, and then you're looking like, well, my check is this, but you brought in, $20 billion last month, and we got an issue, right? You're looking at that big picture, but you're not looking at, again, how, what else is underneath all of that that needs to get done, right? So that's why I'm speaking about integrity, because I think at this particular juncture, it's bigger than just to an employee saying, hey, I'm putting in my resignation and I'm not even telling you. It's bigger than that, because that's going to happen. I get it. It's about how we are going to move into, which we're already stepping into, this new generation of technology and AI and machine learning, and machines learning how to be like us, right? If we don't operate with integrity on a more consistent basis, how in the world can we expect those who are programming AI to implement an integral side into AI? Especially when it's not necessarily warranted or necessary to be lack of integrity. There was nothing that was done for this employee not to communicate to us, or to feel like they didn't have an open door to communicate to the company and to the team, to let the team know what they were feeling. It wasn't because the conversations that my team had with this employee was never one to guide the employee to feel like they had to do something that was going to be best for the company. It was always going to be best for the employee. Even to the fact when we were negotiating, I remember my team member saying, which, because again, I'm the head of the spear, right? And I always tell my team, you leave off with, if it doesn't work well for you or your family, we want you to do what's best for you and your family, even if that means not working with us. And we did that. My team member did that for with this particular employee that we were bringing on board. So much so, we thought we weren't even going to work with them about 3 months into the negotiations. Remember, I was talking about the 4 to 5 months process prior to getting him. We thought he was going to walk away and go with someone else. And we were like, okay, we understand. You got to do what's best for you. And we told him that. About 2 months prior to, he comes back to us and say, hey, I'm going with you guys, because we didn't force him into anything, because that's not how we operate. That's not how I operate. And that's, so if again, integrity, if I'm the head of the snake, it's imperative that I trickle down my values, my morals, my beliefs to my team members, right? That are working with, our employees, and then obviously our vendors, our clients, right? So this is why I say, if the integrity is there on our end, we have to make sure integrity is there on everybody's end, because if we're being demanded to be held at a high standard, a high level, so should the employee. But we all should be, as humans, because again, someone in some way, we're creating the narrative that these AIs are learning from. We're creating the perceptions reality, the perceived reality that they're trying to learn from. If we're giving off these erroneous energies of, and the mess of energy of weak integrity, because we don't have integrity amongst ourselves, for ourselves, then how can we expect for the AI that's being created, like I said, and for the practitioners and the people who are creating it, the programmers, to be able to infuse the knowledge necessary and a higher level of thinking? It's going to get the intelligence, but we have to make sure there's a level of integrity along with that. Because if we don't have that level of integrity, then this is where we'll have what people are fearing, which is a legit fear: the dominance and takeover of AI over humanity, right? Because you're creating this robotic creature that doesn't have, weak infrastructure, eventually physical body, right? And then eventually we'll have the ability to, whether you call it conscious or not, higher intelligence, most likely. But if it's skewed on the biases, without a foundation of integrity and character, which is values, moral completeness, and wholeness of giving one's word and actions and everything aligning, no matter if someone's watching or not, right? That's what integrity is, right? Integrity is values, morals, and the consistency of with that, even to the fact when you mess up, because nobody's saying perfect. Integrity does not mean perfect. Integrity does not mean perfection. And this is why, again, we can also say, and I'll say this, because it doesn't mean perfection. Yes, that employee that put in their resume, they were wrong, but it wasn't necessarily a situation where I need to come back at them, or we need to come back at them as a company, because people are fallible. And I do not think it was done out of spite or intentionality to hurt. It was done out of fear and trying to position themselves. And again, we didn't have enough as a team interactions with this individual to see a track record. So, if we dealt with him twice, then, he's 50% right now, right? So 50% good, 50%, wishy-washy on the integrity side, right? But integrity is about having the consistency. True integrity is about having the consistency of deliverable of your values and morals and what you say you're going to do, aligning with your actions, right? And most of the time, aligning with the actions of, if you say you're going to, be on a contract for a year, you're going to receive the salary, you're going to stay with that unless, something does happen that you just have to move. But even with that, communicating within an ample amount of time to the parties that have given you the same respect of communicating with you in order for you to be in this position in the first place, right? So that would be the integrity side that party did not uphold. Again, not saying to be perfect. The reality is you didn't uphold that. So now recognizing, and then part of being integral, but part of having the integrity and showing integrity is to say, hey, I messed this up, and being forthcoming and being, owning the mishap that you created, right? And this is all things that I've learned in time, because again, not perfect. I've messed things up in my personal life, and I've had to go back and apologize profusely, not to sweep it under the rug or to clear, or to say I wasn't wrong. No, to say I was wrong. Hopefully the damage that I've done, didn't, eclipse my whatever it was, 20 years, 15 years, or 10 times operating with the individual. Hopefully, the damage I did didn't eclipse the consistency overall that I've done. In some cases it did. In some cases, right? Again, luckily, knock on wood, I haven't done, I've been more character, integrity, consistent in my life than I have been, wrong. Doesn't mean that I haven't, done a thing or two that I should not have done, right? And I'm being forthcoming about that again. And it wasn't anything, thank goodness, where it harms someone, in life or death. It wasn't that at all, right? It was more romantic or emotional, right? That still hurts people, right? So, but I made my amends on that. And again, I fessed up to what I did do, because my integrity tells me no matter what, if I do mess it up, let me say I messed up. And I don't need to go through excuses. I don't need to go through why, the reasons. The reality is I messed it up. Now, how do we address it from here? And so we can move forward. And I will do my damnedest to make sure I never do that again. That's where my integrity comes in, because now I have to now move forward and not do it again. And we see this all the time. We see this all the time, right? In marriages, we see this in business. And, it's always funny to me. People want to feel like they're so above the fray because, they were the wrong party. And they're like, okay, well, now you just messed me over. I want to come at you and attack you like you've never done anything wrong. That's why in religion they talk about he without sin cast the first stone, because it's like, okay, if the person does come back and says, okay, I apologize, I'm sorry. In business, if the company messes up and they make a notice and they have, the public relations make the, statement, we profusely apologize for this will not happen again, we will recall everything back and we'll redo it and we'll make it right, and they do, then, you know, they get that pass and then they continue to grow as a company, right? It's the same thing, marriage. If God forbid, but it happens, it's real life. If, the husband cheats, and the woman finds out, if the true love is there, right? And they've been together for a few years and this is the first moment of infidelity, if he's, not trying to say why, pointing fingers like, well, you did this. If the person is saying, in this case, the man being the one who cheated, right? As my example, if he's saying, I messed up, unequivocally, I messed up. Please forgive me. Let's go to therapy. Let me do the work. let me, buy the house if they don't have that type of money, right? To pay gifts and stuff, but watch me and just watch me, give me, ample amount of time to just do right by, and if they're saying that and showing that, again, the integrity part, hopefully the consistency given before that, moment will give that grace period necessary in order to be able to show the consistency and or the integrity growth that needs to happen again, to not so much again sweep that infidelity on the rug, but to show, okay, that was a one-time mess up, and let's move on. Now, if you're doing 2 or 3 times, that's a whole different story. You know what I'm saying? If it was shaky before all that, then yeah, that's a different thing. Y'all got to deal with that, right? But I'm talking about integrity, or real integrity, because real integrity is like, for me as a person who, I'm 43, as a young man and as a man who has exercised for, since I was 13 years of age, right? My integrity shows the consistency not only through my aesthetic look, but you see it through my business prowess. You see it through my growth on how I, continue to learn, how I continue to understand different, business dynamics, how I understand different markets. But you also see it too, because it's more so it shows up when it's necessary, when no one's looking for me, right? I stay true to exercise, not so much so everybody can look at my aesthetic and I can feel confident. I do it because and the reason why you can look at my aesthetic and see it, that I'm consistent and my integrity is there on my consistency over, I'm 43, so 20, what, 30, well, yeah, 43, 30 years, right? Excuse me, 13, I can do my math that quick, right? Over 30 years of consistency and my integrity to myself is, I understand no matter if I get injured, no matter if my money is good or not, which we've talked about before. I've been homeless twice, so my money has been bad for a stretch multiple times. Whether I'm traveling internationally, whether I'm at home, or whether I, have things going on with my daughter, who I had to, grow up and raise too, help. If I'm stressed out about that or not, I still maintain a level of staying true to my wellness. That was the exercise and the eating clean, not going into drunken, super states of drunkenness, or eating fast food because it's the cheapest thing and I'm broke and my girl left me, or my daughter she's not talking to me for a week or two because she's upset that I haven't seen her, because I'm broke and I can't get to her, right? I stayed true to the integrity no matter what the outside consequences or scrutiny may be. I stay true to me, knowing that if I don't keep the wellness of my nutrition, if I don't keep the wellness of my physical activity, then the things that are at that time fucked up are going to sustain their fucked upness, because I don't have the integrity of how to stay true to what I know is going to work for me to get me when I get out of this, how to sustain that level of excellence, right? So I've always shown a level of integrity, and this is why most people work with me. This is why most companies and most individuals that I deal with work with me, because my team members that I have work with me because they can see a level of integrity, not only based off my external look, but because it's coming from an internal place of, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to stay articulate and intelligent and understanding. Okay, I'm not going to speak on things that I don't know. I'm gonna speak on things that I do know. And if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. And my ego is not too proud of that. And I'm consistent with that. So, if you come to me as a business, if I say we can provide this, as HR or the hiring rep, I have been diligent in showing you we provide this. If I say I'm going to get you 5 recs within, the next 48-hour period, or 10 quality recs or 2 quality recs, whatever you need, I do that. We deliver that, right? My team does that because it's imperative that our integrity on what we do on a daily basis shows through how we deliver everything that we deliver. If you're also listening to what I'm saying, integrity comes from too, I've seen the word, but it's more about you as an individual holding true to you, no matter what anybody sees or does not see. The thing that I pride myself on is the fact that most of you don't even know necessarily where I am unless I say it, right? Which is fine, because I'm not on social media blasting it. I'm not, showing it in different ways where, it's not about that for me. What I also learned too with integrity is I like to mentally tell myself, I'm going to create hell in paradise. And that is a statement that, how do I put it to you? I say I create hell in paradise. And I do that in so many different ways. That's why I exercise and train the way I do. That's why I eat clean, even though I don't, more often than not. That's why I don't go out clubbing or parties. Why I don't spend money on a lot of things that I possibly could spend money on, because I like to create hell out of paradise for myself. So therefore, when paradise hits and I'm able to enjoy it, I'm able to really enjoy paradise. So what do I mean by that when I say that? So people always say, well, how do you stay working out so much? Even though you might, have to work, on a 24-hour day, you might be working literally 16 hours on a project, right? You know, uh, and I'm not the only one who does this, but successful people, successful, when I say successful, not just the monetary success, but people who have a certain level of peace within their life and through all this chaos. And that's really the success that I think is most important. If you obtain a level of peace consistently, you understand how to preemptively create hell out of paradise. So, what do I mean by that? So, like I said, presently, my backdrop, I'm in Thailand. I'm in Phuket, Thailand. And it's a modest place that I'm staying in, very modest. But outside, for me, it's paradise as far as palm trees, weather is gorgeous, right? Beach right here, access, all that stuff. And you see people where I'm staying in a very small, not popular area. You see families from Europe and from like Australia, Russia coming here to vacation to get away, right? So for them, paradise, right? It's vacation. It's a place to escape. It's like going to the Caymans or going to, uh, you know, um, Playa del Carmen, or going to, anywhere that's, that you think is Aruba, that you think is tropical from the States, right? To get away for a week or two, you think that's paradise. So for me, when I'm here, I'm going for runs early morning. I'm lifting weights. I told somebody the other day, I lift weights like I'm in prison, but I'm a free man. That's a scary thing. And you think about that on your own. So if I have that level of discipline, I create paradise. I create hell in paradise. So therefore, when I get a call from my team member who tells me, unbeknownst to us, that we have someone walking away, which is a major six-figure deal that's getting ready to leave, and we need that income because it's a company. I have people to pay. I got things to do. I already have created hell for myself. So when, it's already, I'm not shocked and I'm not scared because I put myself through this on a daily basis. And I kind of talked about this, about your routine in other episodes and all that, working out, shocking the parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system. So therefore, when real life or things don't go the way they need to, you're not shook. You're not now knocked off and you can't focus on what you need to do and then take the action necessary to make it happen. So by me creating the hell out of paradise, ipso facto, when my team member tells me this, I'm like, okay, cool. Is it ideal? By no means. By no means is ideal. But it's to be expected because life is entropy. It will go towards more chaotic chaos than it will right things, right? So this makes sense. So because I'm in palm trees and running, you know, um, sometimes in the hottest time of the day, working out. So therefore I'm pushing myself to the max on a daily basis. Now I can now, because that's my integrity, no matter if I'm showing you, no matter if I'm posting it or not, because I don't, but or people are seeing me do it or not, doesn't matter. What matters is my integrity says get it done. Because, hey, bro, you run a company, you're going to hit moments where things are going to fall out. You have people who've invested, people who, you got to pay back, right? You got to make the money happen. Well, part of the reason why I'm living in Thailand, shocking the nervous system, I'm living in a place where I'm paying a fraction monthly, a fraction of what I would pay in the States to live. And then if you know anything about the bot, it's 4 to 1 US to the bot, right? So again, using the money that my money well enough to where if I have to now invest, X amount of dollars of my money into the company, I can do so, right? But I'm creating hell out of paradise. So therefore, I can have more paradise moments in the time frame needed, if it makes sense. I don't project because I know we do this thing too. Well, as you get older, you want to be in a position where you can retire well. You can do, and for me, I'm not about that. I want to live my fullest because I don't know if I'll get to 55. Say, I know I'll get to 43. Hopefully, yeah. Because modern day age and all that, but you never know. So I'm not putting off for later what I can do now. Even though I make hell out of paradise, I still live in paradise on a daily basis because I'm extremely grateful for what it is that I'm able to do and how I'm able to do it, and also provide for others as well while doing what I'm doing. Okay. But it's because there's a level of sacrifice and discipline that I institute, and integrity that I institute on a daily basis in order to be prepared to be able to deliver on these facets. Right. So I think it's imperative that we have this conversation. We can't keep projecting onto everybody and everything else the messed up things that we see them do or not do, especially the things that they do. You have to have the integrity to say, okay, look, if I'm doing my part, I understand things are going to happen outside of me. Only thing I can control is me. And it can't just be words. It needs to be done on a daily basis through your actions, to your understanding. If you talk to the employee and my team member, they wanted me to put together an email to, blast the employee that's leaving. And I'm like, no, you just tell them again, the same thing we said before. As long as the family is okay and you feel like they made the right decision for them, we're happy for you. And, it's been great working with you. We're sad to see you go, but, we wish you the best. Now, if they want to come back through us again, that's a different story. Because again, what is it? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, all that stuff, right? Bush, right? Again, we're not a nice guy. Nobody's saying be ignorant and obtuse to what the reality is. You still got to be straightforward, right? But we don't wish ill, and we still don't respond. We don't react in a negative, because so often that is the thing that happens. What makes it worse is the response to the seemingly injustice that has just happened, the lack of integrity that just happened. And what I'm not going to do is compound the situation by any means through our organization, through our team, and compound it to what feel good to say for 2 seconds that, yeah, you did it. No, it doesn't do us any good. Because at the end of the day, we still got to provide for our overall client the replacement, right? So let's get to focusing on that immediately. You know what I'm saying? Which is what we did and what we're doing, right? And I'm confident, that again, you can never say 100%, but I'm confident we'll be able to, if everything aligns, we'll be able to find a replacement for him, and and move on in that position, and there'll be a little hiccup in the contract and the pricing, but then we'll get back on track, right? Um, so yeah, and then, to me, I look at it as a great challenge for us as a company, because now we have to, feel that, or have the opportunity to fill that position. And so our client is looking at us like, what can you do? When something like this happens, can you provide, talent in a quick moment to replace, right? All this is to me a way for us to again put on our Superman cape and be integral and show integrity. Is integral it? I hope you guys leave a comment. Let me know if I'm saying that right. But show the integrity necessary as a company and be able to provide the proper talent in a very timely, efficient manner, because he's leaving the client high and dry as well, right? And the main thing is they need to continue going forward because they have budgets and they have concerns, they have clients, they have things, deadlines they need to meet, right? So again, when you're able to quiet the noise, recognize what's the most important thing, which is the integrity of your values, your morals, and the consistency of deliverables of that. Even in most important moments when things are going awry, whether people are seeing it or not, whether you're going to get crucified for it or not publicly, still sticking true to what you know is the right thing to do and delivering on that. That is what I believe we need to be more of across the board. Across the board. Again, not trying to be perfect because no one is. Not trying to play victim if you are the one who has gotten wronged by someone, especially if that person has, like I said, made amends and showed their integrity to say, hey, I messed this up, right? Being able to walk in integrity and say, yeah, but I'm not going to let you do it to me again, true enough, in that manner, right? So I'm not going to open up that door. Understandable, shouldn't. But I will, if it's done right, allow for you to have opportunity to work with us if it makes sense, right? Or to be in a relationship if that's what the lack of communication was, or the or the fallibleness within integrity happened within a romantic dynamic or friendship or whatever it may be, right? Um, so again, guys, I just want to make sure we open dialogue about integrity from both dynamics. I'm the business owner who we got messed over by the employee, and it was no need for that, but they did, and it's okay because it happened. We're aware of it, but I want to bring it to light that it's not always just the companies doing wrong by the employees, especially in this particular case. Like I said, because we did make it aware. We did give you things that most people don't get. You got salary when you're a contractor, and you get 18% on the markup on your pay when the market rate is literally 18 to even 25% less than what we paid you. And then you didn't communicate when you were prior to getting in the position. uh, they communicated ad nauseum, so did we. But then when it came down to you making this decision, you didn't communicate at all. When we were still with the communication ad nauseum of checking in with you to see how things are going, as we should, right? But just because you should doesn't mean that it gets done, people. Again, because that's what integrity is. Just because you should work out, most of us don't. Just because you should eat healthy, most of us don't. Just because you should not cheat, not lust for someone when you're in marriage or in a committed situation, most of us still do those things, right? So you should not do a lot of this stuff. But what we're saying is, and what I'm bringing to your attention is the importance of integrity. So it's not about the should, it's just about delivering on your values, on your morals, consistently, not every when it feels good and not when it's easy. And that's the other thing about integrity, not when it's easy to do. That's the other thing about integrity. And that's the other thing that, again, that, it also used to be said too about why companies want someone beyond just the education prowess and continuance. Companies, it used to be said that companies wanted to see a person, with a degree because it shows a level of commitment to their perpetuation of knowledge and growth, right? And that's right, and that makes sense. You want to see that, and then the culmination, obviously, in a bachelor's and a master's and all that stuff, right? But now that we have AI at our fingertips, Chat GPT, like I said before, and all this other stuff, I'm want to bring up the conversation, like I said, and challenge people to show a level of integrity on their character and their morals, of their word, more so about what they say to themselves first and foremost, and what they do to themselves on a consistent basis, because that will show you too and let you know how you want to operate with these individuals. Like I said about a few minutes ago, I said, reason why I know I've been able to continue to grow my businesses and grow my network and network and net worth is because when people speak with me, and people of like mind and energy speak with me who have, seemingly a little more position or power to be able to make moves, they can tell with me that there's a level of commitment and dedication of integrity to myself first and foremost. So when I'm delivering myself in the business setting now, in the companies that I own, and as you hear me speak, you have a level of trust in the fact that, oh, okay, well, if he can stay at 43 physically, skin, hair, nails, teeth, at a point where he doesn't look broke down and beat up by life after having an 18-year-old daughter, not married to, the child's mother, being a distant father, but still very much so being in my daughter's life, and working through that, being homeless twice, building 4 companies, losing 3 of them. What I'm saying now, this was technically 5, the last 2 doing well. If you can do all that, you're seeing a level of integrity and consistency in a person in real time, that you can say, okay, there must be some values or core foundational premises that are allowing this individual to continue to excel at each level of life, and also deliver oneself in a way where you can see it in real, and the fruits of the labor. So ipso facto, it goes into business as well, because my integrity, keeping my word with myself beyond the look, people always look at me and say, well, you look great. Again, if I've been doing this since I was 13, 43, 30 years. This is not, last 6 months or I wanted to look right just because I knew I was traveling. This is 30 years going through homeless, going through losing money, going through child support payments, going through all this stuff. 30 years. Sicknesses, you know what I'm saying? Depression. Because you going through being homeless twice. Don't think that your psyche is okay. Do not, especially when you got homeless at 40. Come on, people. So integrity was a thing that kept me true to what's going to allow me to read books. You know, read Martha Beck's Way of Integrity. Because I'm not the only one speaking on this. There are books on this, literal books on integrity. But reading different things, different economic books, different books on AI industry, even when things were broke, right? Broken, I should say, because they weren't broke. When it's broke, it's done. Broken means you can actually repair it, you can fix it. That's the integrity that I live by. I'm hoping having this conversation with you and you keep seeing us show up, the integrity of us showing up, even though Doc is not here today. He'll be back on the next episode. This is the integrity I'm talking about that is necessary for us to exude, even when I'm fallible. I got homeless because of the things that I didn't do right, and I had to suffer the consequences. I had friendships, one major friendship that I messed up a few years back, and I took onus on that, and I told them I was wrong for that. I messed it up. And not saying be perfect. We're saying take ownership. That's the integrity part of it. And then step up and do better. Don't repeat it. My friend who I hurt, I haven't repeated that process, never will. I've never never recently lied or cheated to a woman because I don't want to do that. I'm single, so I ain't got to worry about that. But I let them know up front who I am and how I am, and that way you can make a decision because I'm walking in integrity. I'm not walking in a situation where I need someone to see me do these things. I need to do them on my own because I have to look myself in the mirror. That's what I talk to my daughter about all the time. We just got the phone 2 days ago talking about this. She's dating a young man, going through the process, it's ebb and flow, young love, 18. But regardless of young love or not, she has to look in the mirror and say she feels she's giving everything she can to herself first and foremost, and then to the relationship. If she can look herself in the mirror and have that integrity and go through her checkpoints and say she's doing that, great. If she's leading herself through emotional unintegrity, then that's where she needs to check herself. It has nothing to do with him. He is who he is. Good guy, whatever. He is who he is. It's about you and integrity you're bringing to you first and foremost. If you're dealing with that, then you'll be okay. And it's not about the integrity that dad wants, that mom wants. It's about the integrity that you're cultivating for yourself. You may say, well, she's 18, she don't know. Look, we all were 18 once, and we're all trying to learn. I'm 43, and I'm still trying to learn. That's why I'm bringing these conversations out so we can learn together. Because again, we're now putting these things into something that has longevity through technology. And if we're not having these real, true conversations, and then delivering on the principle, not on the theory, but on the actual principle, then we're going to set ourselves up in the tech world for failure. And then we're going to have the outcome that we all fear that can potentially happen. But if we work backwards, invert it, and talk about and then deliver on the principle of integrity, completeness, wholeness, soundness, which is what integrity is, coming from the Latin integras, right? We show completeness and wholeness and soundness in humanity, values, structure, consistency, deliverable, morals on a consistent basis, then we can now program that into things that are going to be along our agents alongside us and eventually most likely leading us in some kind of way 9 times out of 10, because I don't know how you get around it. That's a different conversation for a different day, but it's okay. They're leading us from an integral moral premise, but if they're not, they're leading us from the fucked up part of us, which is the biases and the wrong and the more inconsistent deliverables that we tend to perpetuate on in the masses, right? Then we're going to be in trouble. So I just wanted to have a conversation about that. It got brought to my attention. We're doing what we got to do as a company. We're making things, move forward as they do, and make it do what it do, as they say, right? Um, Part of the process. But I do want to just make sure we start having a real conversation about something that we can control still, that we're not delivering on by any means, but we need to as humanity: integrity, consistency with our morals, our values, and our efforts, and how our words and in our actions need to all align, especially when it's tough, especially when no one's watching. So therefore, when it's easy and people are watching, then it's like clockwork, and we're delivering the excellent part of who we are. So AI in that can learn, and the programmers can feel and put in there the proper things that are principled for us to move forward. Hope it makes sense. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please comment. Please like, subscribe, come chat with me. Come chat with Doc. Doc will be back on. Dr. William Komar, doctor in biochemistry. He's based in Zurich and building his brewery right now. So working through that process. Yeah, come talk with us, man. Like, we want to have real conversation. I am the owner of Kane Ross LLC. We staff IT engineers, we staff project managers into companies. So dark data scientists, anything IT wise, front end, full stack engineers, machine learning engineers. We staff that. We have a great team that we work with. We have major connections with Georgia Tech, UCLA, Arizona State University. We have a gentleman that has literally wrote the book in dark data. A professor at ASU who we work very, very closely with, who has a myriad of prestigious knowledge and certifications and degrees underneath his belt, that spearheads our team and how we disseminate things. So, again, this is not coming from our conversation, not coming from a gentleman who doesn't understand. It's not literally in this time of tariffs, wars going on. Um, heat, in places that normally are not as hot as they are. A situation where housing loss is going on, or housing not being provided for people in their nation, whether you're in Spain or wherever it may be. So I'm very fully aware of what's going on. So our conversations, again, I'm living in Thailand, was in Spain, was in Colombia, will be most likely in Middle East here shortly, even with what's going on between Iran and Israel. Again, so I'm very aware. So the conversations I'm bringing to you guys are not conversations that are for the faint of heart. They're conversations to spark your thought and to have intellectual, higher level, esoteric thought, if you will, but from two people, like I said, because Doc is with me too, and he lives in Zurich presently right now. So having conversation that's not just talking about the sports or the latest hip hop songs that came out, but having conversation from two black men who are literally in the throes of growing. In my case, very small but financially stable staffing firm, also growing this platform, and also working and aligning myself with Dr. William Komar, who is my cousin, but him building out his brewery, doing something that most people don't think about doing. Most African Americans don't think about doing. Uh, you have certain people who do certain things, but I think we don't have enough avenues for multiple levels of conversation to be had. And we don't want you to feel pressured. We want you to feel comfortable to come and talk with us, because again, we're going through it in our way, and we're just talking about it in real time, because we don't just want to sit there and just be, once I hit my marker here, which will be soon, the millions that we'll be hitting. And then you say, well, it's easy for you. You didn't have to go through. And you're hearing from us how and what we're going through. You know what I'm saying? Doc just recently told you he got laid off while he's trying to build his brewery, which that job that he had, he was making great money there in Zurich. And now they laid him off, right? He just talked about that, right? They let him go. That was his first time being let go. And he's trying to build his business. I'm letting you know we just lost a big deal, a big client, or a major employee, which is part of our contract, with one of our major clients, if we don't feel that, we're out of big money. You know what I'm saying? These are not small, these are over $250,000, and up contracts, you know what I'm saying? So it's not little money that you can just throw away, right? But I'm talking to you about this so you can understand from a different perspective. I'm not harping on the negative of it. I'm trying to talk to you about the levels in which we need to attack it in order for us to move through this and grow through this the right way, which is what this platform is about. If our routines and our structure and our health and mental wellness and emotional wellness is intact, then the chaos, the entropy that life always tends to go towards and wants to move towards, right? And we know this, if we're having the right conversations in the right community around us, then we can think differently, we can move differently, and we don't have to keep operating out of just survival mode and operating just off of fear factors and then reacting in that manner. We can react now better. We can react more like a military where we observe and then we, analyze and then we move from there, as opposed to, oh, knee jerk, you cussed me out. You didn't tell me this. Well, I'm gonna now cuss you out. I'm gonna now put you down. I'm gonna now send people after you. And it's like, for what? What are we doing? That's not how we need to get on to the next level of taking care of ourselves as people. Okay. So that's what we want to talk about on this platform. Thank you guys. Doc will be back to give his perspective on things he's going through and that we'll talk about for next topics. But integrity, people, integrity. If you work on your integrity for you first and foremost, then it will start to permeate everything else that you do. Not perfection, but integrity and consistency with deliverable on integrity and your values and your morals. All right. Have a great one. We'll talk soon.